Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior. Welcome.
It's time for The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Some of the greatest adventures of my life are sitting in this museum.
Big deal.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Oh, your teacher.
Part-time.
Mr. Henry Jones, Jr. of Princeton, New Jersey.
I like Indiana.
We're named the dog Indiana.
Now, what shall we talk about?
Hey there, welcome IndyCast listeners and all you Further fans to the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. I am Joe Stuber.
And I'm Keith Voss.
Happy Indyversary, my friend.
Happy Indyversary, Joe.
Which one are we talking about? There's a lot of Indyversary.
There's so many, but we are talking about our 5th anniversary for the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. 5 years.
Yeah, I put a little blurb out there on the last IndyCast because it was actually on the date, which was pretty cool. The IndyCast premiered on the date of our 5th anniversary. You were traveling. The Red Line was going. You were in Venice, or at least parts there.
I was close. I was in Bolton, Italy for a wedding.
Bolton.
I didn't see any tapestries, but I was at a wedding in a castle. And it was quite amazing. So, we unfortunately weren't able to record, but we had to postpone it slightly. Yeah. But that doesn't matter because, here we are now.
5 years. Man, this has been, what a ride it's been. Man, we've covered everything. We covered all of the Marvel. Well, we covered most stuff.
We're getting there.
We definitely covered all of the Marvel stuff, all the
yes.
interviews, everything. And I posted a picture of like some of our many adventures over the years. We got to meet up a few times. In DC, we got to stand next to the actual Ark of the Covenant. Well, not the actual Ark of the Covenant, but close enough for in our world.
Just in the films. The one used in the films, exactly.
Got to meet up with Mitch. We did the Crystal Skull tour. We recorded podcasts together. I mean, it's been a ride. I can't believe it's been 5 years.
Me neither. Don't forget also Trivia Brothers, and that's actually how we met. For all the new IndyCast listeners that don't know the story of the Further Adventures guys, that's how Joe and I initially met. We were both sending in trivia answers, and and there were a couple of close races between us, and
we kind of rehash things post trivia questions, and we start talking about the comic books and start talking about this, and hey, what if we did this? And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, why don't we just hit record and let things happen? Let's review all these issues of the comic books. June 13th, 2011. That's when we premiered. It's been 5 years. Thanks. I mentioned it the last time. Thanks again to Ed Dollista. Boy,
absolutely.
We love talking about comic books, but this makes it, less odd of us just sitting around talking about comic books if there's an actual focus to it.
Exactly, and we're so glad that we were able to for many reasons to put this segment on the IndyCast because it has introduced the comic to a lot of people that hadn't read it before, and we really feel quite proud that we got so many emails and we heard from all of you guys, the fans out there, who had either never read the comic before or hadn't read it since it was initially in the comic stores on the racks. So we just want to give a big thank you to all the fans out there too that we've ever heard from, all of our good Further fan friends out there, friends on the Facebook page. Thank you guys so much for really doing all that you do, and we're really looking forward to finishing out this Dark Horse series, and hopefully when Indy 5 finally makes it into theaters, maybe Marvel will go along the same route as Star Wars and start releasing a brand new Indiana Jones series. Cool. That's what we're hoping for, guys.
Yeah, I mean, keep the comic book stuff going. Yeah,
absolutely, that would be great. I mean, and also, Joe, our anniversary isn't the only one that's being celebrated right now. There's another huge anniversary that just passed, and that is the 35th anniversary of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
The greatest film of all time. That's why we're all doing this. Man, this is...
Why we're here.
Yeah, we've all been kind of reminiscing on the Facebook pages and the IndyCast page and the Further Adventures page. I know Laird put some stuff out there. So, yeah, it's the movie. It's our favorite movie. A lot of good indie stuff going on right. I'm going to get to see Raiders on the 35th anniversary, not on the date, but here in Ohio, it's at the Ohio Theater. They have a summer movie series. I think last year was Jaws. They've done Superman. This year, hey, Raiders of the Lost Ark, they're bringing it back. I'm going to check that out. I'm going to get to, depending on when this airs, I will either be going to or have met up with the Raiders guys, Eric Zala and Chris Strompolis. They're going to be coming to Columbus, Ohio. Hopefully put something together there for the IndyCast. So a lot of good Raiders stuff going on, but a lot of good indie stuff going on. As we mentioned on the last episode too, Ed and I believe Laird and Ron are going to be talking about this on the John Williams special. He's coming back to score Indy 5, man. That is just amazing.
And Star Wars Episode 8. I mean, initially the initial news was that he was not going to return to do Star Wars. But
I kind of assumed though he was going to, didn't you? Like it just you think he always does the trilogy, and it's a complete story. Like the Star Wars films are a complete story within their own trilogies. Indiana Jones, it's always kind of like that. They get to it when they get to it, and maybe So I was a little more worried about that one.
I truly think that he, like us all, he loves that character, and he wants to contribute to that world as much as he can. And I'm really looking forward to seeing. I mean, he did some great music for Crystal Skull. So let's fingers crossed that we get a few more movies music wise out of John Williams. I couldn't be happier that he's returning to score Indiana Jones 5.
It's gonna be amazing. I even think like some of the elements that people kind of complain about with Indiana Jones 4. I mean, you think about the jungle scene and the fights and the sword fights and all these different elements in that. But to me, the music is unbelievable through all that. I mean, I think that I think it enhances those scenes. So even if there are some weak parts in the film, I mean, that music is just. I mean, I could listen to it just over and over, that soundtrack. So it's amazing.
And
I can't wait.
I usually do.
Yeah, I do too. It's always playing at some point.
But aren't we here to talk about something else, though, Joe?
We are here to talk about something else. We are continuing our reviews of the Dark Horse miniseries, the Indiana Jones miniseries. We're going to be getting to that right now. Golden appendages, knife-throwing Romanians, and friendly llamas. They are all part of our review of Dark Horse Comics' Indiana Jones 4-issue miniseries, Arms of Gold. Yep, we're going to spoil the whole thing for you if you haven't read it, or if you haven't read it for quite a while, where we're going to talk about all the plot points. Read along with us, take a look at it. We're going to review the entire 4-issue miniseries, Indiana Jones and the Arms of Gold, from February through May 1994. Interesting thing about this, and you'll see that in the letters column as well of the books, it actually overlapped with the late-running Thunder in the Orient. So you had like the last couple of issues of Thunder in the Orient. Then they released this one. Look, they were just, the editor was like, let's just get this out. Don't worry about the other one. Let's just get this out. So you've got that. So those came out. Keith, you want to give us a rundown on our creative team for this one?
Absolutely. I would love to. Indiana Jones and the Arms of Gold. Writer, Lee Mars. The artist was Leo Deranonia. Color artist, Matthew Hollingsworth. Letterer, Steve Haney. Book designer, Scott Fuentes. Editor, Diana Schutz. Cover artist Russell Walks, and those covers. Oh my goodness, those covers! Good
stuff, yeah. And what I like about this series is that we keep the same creative team through all 4 books. Sometimes we see that with the Dark Horse books is that you get some on one book and then it starts running late, and then it goes to this book, and then
This one stayed very consistent. Absolutely,
it did stay very consistent. I do love the covers. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the artwork inside too, and you'll notice as you go through, I think editors keeping a tighter rein on this book to make sure that it gets out consistently on a monthly basis, and I think you'll see that the art does suffer a little bit. So I like the art in the last book, but obviously they were taking a lot more time on it, and it was missing deadlines. This one, I think they were more deadline driven, so you'll see some rushed art as you go through. Not that it's bad art; it's just a lot of it is more rough, maybe sketch,
and more rough, and less backgrounds.
Yeah,
like whereas you just have like kind of 2 talking heads with just kind of a blank background kind of thing. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, you'll see that, and we've got also and I don't know. You're looking at these in the omnibus.
I'm looking at them in the Dark Horse omnibus,
Does it
volume
have the letters
1.
Column?
They do not have the letters column here, and they only have the very first cover in here.
Okay. That's where you're going to suffer with the omnibus. You probably should go get the original books. They're cheap. You can find them anywhere.
Absolutely.
But you do get that. There are a lot of different things. First of all, as we go through this, that letters section which is missing in the omnibus. You get bios on the creative team in issues 1 and 2, so you find out some background on all the creators there, as well as translations for the Spanish, French, Latin, and Quechua that's used throughout.
Right.
So there's a lot of it. I mean, I was like Googling, and then I forgot that the translations were in the letters page, and it's
this
have
book
to flip
is
back and forth.
This book is filled with different languages.
Yeah.
So if you don't have those original books, you're going to be using Google Translate a lot, folks.
You're going to be good, which I started to, and then I remembered, they're in the thing. So yeah. So go get the original books if you can, and then you do get that like sort of bonus cover, if you want to say, like the back cover. I don't think any of the other books, to my knowledge, I mean, as we go through these, I'm sure I'll be reminded of it, but I don't think the books, at least up to this point, have done that before.
No, they. I don't think they have either. It is a quite. I mean, it's a nice little addition to get these single issues if you can. I mean, of course, the omnibus is nice. You have all the stories in one place, but yeah, there's nothing like owning the original books. I mean, they're not that expensive, like you said, Joe, and definitely go out and get them. You'll be able to find them for pretty cheap.
So we got our covers here by Russell Walks. He also does Golden Fleece, which is going to be coming up, the Sargasso Pirates. He's done Star Wars. He's done X-Files, Star Trek. You can check out his website at russellwalks.com. Issue number 1, I'm okay with the Temple of Doom. Obviously, they're using shots from the movies as we're going through these things. So, there's a lot of Temple of Doom coming in here to play.
Absolutely.
But The Last Crusade, that's definitely Elsa.
Absolutely. That's, I mean, without a doubt, when they're in the catacombs in Venice. But they just recolored her hair here. So
it's supposed to be Francisca, but I mean, more Francisca on the back. I mean, that's probably just a model or something he used. And then obviously the opening of Temple of Doom.
But I mean, for the most part, I'm okay with it. It works. I like that the bigger picture of Indy with his hat kind of tilted back. It looks. I mean, I think for the most part, this is a pretty decent cover. It looks basically like they took, a photograph or a print, and they kind of maybe just watercolored over it or traced over it or something. So, I mean, could it have been better? Yeah, but for what it is, I find it to be quite okay. Yeah,
and they take, Russell's taking elements from the story and incorporating them. So you've got, the thug with getting the drop on Francisca and Indy. It kind of plays out like a movie poster. The covers are striking for all these Dark Horse books as we go through.
Oh,
the
absolutely.
Covers are striking. I mean, issues 2 and 3, obviously Raiders, straight out of Raiders, but we do have the story elements coming into play with the knife throwing, the temple we got going on. I'm assuming issue 4 is the Temple of Doom minecart. Is that what you got from it?
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
I had that same idea. With him swinging towards the cart that you mean?
Yeah, like toward the end when they're escaping.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
So we got that, and it's really cool. I mean, you've got the background there, which is nice. You got Francisca. So yeah, I think these all play out really well. At least they're incorporating story elements and making them kind of like movie posters. Really, really striking. I
love the second the cover to the second one. I mean, straight out of Raiders. They shoot out at the Raven Bar.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
It's good.
But
stuff.
Again, I mean, stuff that we've seen before. I would have liked maybe something a little new.
To change it up a little bit. I mean, I guess at the time, we've seen that in some of the covers where they'll tweak some things or change things up a little bit. These ones are very, very much striking images from the movies. And for those of us that are so familiar with the movies, we know the exact scenes that they're taken from.
Sure.
It's interesting. Exactly. One of the writers wrote in a letters column in a later issue. It said, looks like Indiana Jones' hip is slightly out of place or something on cover 1. So I don't know. I didn't catch that, but overall, I think they're great. They get a good movie poster feel. Like I said, it's Russell Walks. Lee Mars, we get the bio on her as well. She also did Iron Phoenix, which is going to be coming up. Also, our artist Leo Duranonia. I'm gonna leave the bulk of the Spanish to you today, my friend.
Not a problem. Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
You can check more out leemars.com. Also, Duranonia Leopoldo1.blogspot.com. Those are out there. Get a little bit more. He also did. Both of them worked on Iron Phoenix. We get those bios. Leo Mars really. It's a multi-talented writer-artist. Currently working in both comic books and animation. Inkpot Award winner. Emmy Award-winning TV art director. So, yeah, a lot of talent going in on these books. And she does an incredible amount of research for this particular story. I was really impressed with it, but it's not so much that it just becomes facts and, history book stuff. I mean, it really plays into the story.
It's all relevant to the story. It's all relevant to the story, which is, I mean, that's how you know you're getting a good story. Exactly what you said. It doesn't feel like it's overwhelming you and you're getting bored by it. It's all relevant to the story. One piece of the puzzle leads to the next piece of the puzzle. It's really, really well done.
Yeah, and it keeps the action going, because you see a lot of this with the artwork too. There's a lot of like action scenes and fight scenes. And, with the whip swinging from sort of Last Crusade, very much inspired by Last Crusade, swinging on the castle.
Absolutely. I mean, if we're going to get into that, I mean, this book reminded me completely of Last Crusade. I mean, again, even down to the cover, you have a little bit of Last Crusade there. But, it had a couple of great running jokes, which I thought were pretty cool. Again, didn't beat you over the head with it. The running joke with the pants, which I thought was quite funny.
The pantalones, and then
it's quite great. He rips his pants. It plays out great. I mean, it's not too much. I thought it was quite funny every time I saw it. I wasn't rolling my eyes. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, no, she's got a sharp sense of humor, and it really plays in. I think the characterizations are really spot on in this one. Again, depending on the deadlines, some of the artwork feels rushed and it's sketchy, but you get what's going on, and I think it's solid. I don't think it's some of the best artwork we've ever seen in Indiana Jones comic. I think at times it is very, very good. It's just inconsistent with the artwork, but the story is spot on.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that the story had me drawn in so much that I didn't mind the artwork being a little spotty. There are certain comics in the Indiana Jones series where, you get kind of a little bit of a not so good story, and the art isn't good at the same time, and you just start noticing this stuff. It just starts to be very, very apparent that you're like, all right, they just kind of didn't care about this at this point. But it's not the case with this book. With this book, the story really does draw you in, and I didn't find myself, on a second read through in preparation for the show, I did notice more of studying the artwork a little bit more, and it did seem a little spottier, but I didn't really notice it on the first read through.
No, it's because we care about the characters as we're moving through. Which, let's talk about the story a little bit. I mean, the comic book starts off in New Delhi in 1937. So we're going back in time just a little bit from where we left off. That's the thing with the Dark Horse books, is they jump around a little bit. So sometimes characters are introduced, and then this happened. We talked about that in the last one, where it's like, well, that's a little bit off. But this one, we're going back a couple of years to 1937.
Before Last Crusade,
but where Willie Scott and Indiana Jones were headed in Temple of Doom. That was their original destination. So we do get to see Indiana Jones in New Delhi. Kind of like a little pre-adventure that we got here. Interesting, where he's getting this golden statue of Shiva, and he's the museum's paying for it. The school/museum's paying for it, and it's interesting how it plays out, because he's buying this from an unnamed woman to pay off the gambling debts of her ne'er-do-well husband, who happens to burst in and thinks that she's having an affair with Indiana Jones, and a gunfight breaks out. Of course it does. There's the joke where it's like you're out of bullets. I only counted 5 shots.
I was just gonna mention that. Exactly. The guy comes in just like letting loose with the gun, and Indy's like, that's 6 shots. He thinks to himself, that's 6 shots, but there are only 5. So, but then the guy pulls out a second gun.
Well, that's the kicker. It doesn't matter how many it was.
It's like, it's great. It's again, and he's wearing the tie.
He is. They're that Last Crusade thing,
there's a little bit of Last Crusade influence again, and I'm wondering if they were really inspired by Last Crusade Indy here.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd, because we know from Last Crusade he's wearing the tie. Well, we figure because he's going to be around his dad and he's trying to impress him. At this point we don't have that yet, but definitely inspired by Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which I believe would have come out like maybe 5 years before this. So fresh in the mind. of everybody, everybody involved.
It's the last version of Indiana Jones that people had for quite a long time, so maybe that's just what they were going by.
Other than the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which, obviously, the Harrison
Ford Indiana Jones, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
And one thing I thought was odd, and I don't know if you picked this up too, but, mention all the different languages that are used throughout, and it's a lot. But that Quechua?
Yeah.
It's, what did you get from that? Because there's, I think in issue 2/3, like at the end and then the beginning, Indy doesn't necessarily understand and needs it translated for him, but then it's kind of mentioned, well, maybe that's a different dialect of it. It's because they definitely would have had, Lee Mars definitely would have had Young Indiana Jones Chronicles as a reference, and even references the World War I adventures
quite a few times.
Definitely Young Indy was on her mind, but then he should have known the language, right? Did you think that was a mistake, or did you think maybe he was faking it in there, or maybe it was a different dialect? What was your take on that?
I hate to say, I think it was a small mistake. I think it was a small mistake. I mean, it's nice to kind of think that maybe he was faking it a bit. I mean, Indy's a smart guy, but I don't know. I think at this point, it seemed like he just didn't know. If you read through the comic, it seemed like he didn't know it. So I think it was just a mistake.
I agree with that too. But it's not that big of a mistake. It's, you could kind of retro make it okay.
Yeah.
Which they kind of do, I think, on the Indiana Jones wiki. I think they make a reference to that. And also we see Indy affiliated with Barnett College for the first time, I believe. Now, some of the other sources say that he was doing some field work on behalf of the college in 1935, because I think there's some references to 1935. But I think this is the official, he's there at Barnett College.
Well, we know that in Raiders he was at
Marshall.
At Marshall, of course, yeah. And then suddenly, of course, Temple of Doom is a prequel, but we don't see or hear anything about which university he's working at that point. And then you got Last Crusade, where he is at Barnett teaching. Yeah. And he's even at Barnett at Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis as well. So who knows? Yeah,
this kind of puts it in that zone of this. I think this is the first official he's working there. But like I said, I think some other reference works mention some work he did in 35, so they kind of retrofit that in and be like, well, maybe he was just doing some field work or something there.
I mean, the whole Barnett Marshall thing, we can go on and on about that, because honestly, it's like Marcus is there too. Yeah. So Marcus, what did they both leave at the same time and both go to a new school together, and they're both, you know what I mean? It's
us fans trying to make it all fit.
Yeah, exactly. There's just some things that don't make sense there, but you know what? Whatever. Just go with it. Who cares?
So he's there, right? Exactly. And it's I like how the college thing plays out. I mean, we've seen this before, and definitely this story does fit the mold of an Indiana Jones adventure. We get the pre-adventure, we get the college thing, we go off globe-trotting, and then crazy temple crashing stuff at the end. So there is that element of it. That said, I think Lee Mars and I think all involved, they do a great job with the story. I was pulled into the story. We've got a very good female character in this, Professor Francisca Uribe del Arco.
Yep.
Okay.
That's it.
I'll go with that. And she's introduced here.
Well done.
Thank you. And it's kind of like we get grumpy Indy. Well, there's a Temple of Doom reference too, when we go in. I think that somebody referenced the Temple of Doom adventure. They read that in the newspaper or something like that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool.
But here we get the beginnings of Grumpy Indy too, which I kind of like. He's he kind of, gets the rug pulled out from under him. He loses one of his courses. He ends up teaching freshman, Incas 101 or something like that. Well, he was supposed to be teaching a seminar on the Incas, and it's given to, Francisca. And so they kind of go back and forth on this. It's interesting, too. There's one, you talk about mistakes. I think there's one where he kind of insults her. He said, she's not worthy of this. And she talks about her background. Again, you go to
calls her a Latin lollipop.
He does.
Which is such a great, it's just a great moment. There's something about it. I could absolutely hear Harrison Ford saying that for some reason. I don't know.
It's a doll. He calls Willie doll, and and it's kind of like that 30s throwback.
Exactly. And then you have a few days later where Uribe and Jones, they collide on the street near the post office, and Jones, like, Indy rips his pants, and she invites him back to her house where the maid repairs them. It's
there's a lot of good
comedy
between them, but there's also that Marion Ravenwood thing, because when they first, when he first insults her, she comes out, with a fist, balled up, and then he mentions an uppercut, but we don't see it. I think they forgot to draw that.
They probably forgot to draw it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in the letters page, they're like, well, it was inferred.
I agree. Okay. I think she's a great sidekick for Indy, because Indy doesn't really have a sidekick throughout this story. And she plays love interest and sidekick all in one. She does a great job of it.
I like that. I like that there's not a sidekick in this one.
I agree.
And we talk about the MacGuffin. They meet, and that chance meeting they have, and the near the post office, and we get the beginnings of the MacGuffin here. They find this finger of gold, which was sent to her by her brother Felipe, and this puts us on the path of trying to find the arms of gold. Obviously, we got all these gold appendages going on. Did you kind of get that this was a little reminiscent of the icons of Icamanen?
Slightly. It didn't really jump at me too much.
Okay.
But I did get a little bit of this. I mean, once we get further in the story, you see that these arms were just kind of like they're obviously not actual arms. They were kind of like cast around the arms, I guess. So I got a little bit of that, but it didn't really jump out at me too much.
Yeah, I mean, basically we're talking about these, these individual, these mummies that were encased in gold.
Right.
And, they put these arms, these appendages. That's what they're trying to find, this lost city, as they go through. What was it? El Dedo de Oro, which is the golden finger.
The arms of Cusco.
This all exists. I mean, you can Google it and, everything's out there. But ultimately, like, these golden appendages were supposed to help them to manipulate stone and to reshape stone, because you think about, like, how did ancient civilizations build all these great things? This
perfectly forming boulders and making pyramids and all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
And could that power be used for nefarious purposes? It's like you can use it to build, but you could also use it to destroy, and that's the whole. That's where we get the Ark of the Covenant kind of thing coming in. Like, can we use it for nefarious purposes?
Exactly. Yeah, I thought that was maybe something that could have possibly been left out, is showing that one scene of, like, because then you all right, that's immediately that that they are capable of doing that. You see, like, kind of a little flashback of the arms actually performing that power.
Yeah.
And I thought that wasn't necessary. I thought they could have left that out, just to keep it a little bit more of a mystery.
It could have. But I mean, this sets our story in motion. So they're trying to find, Felipe had sent them this, and they've got to get this map, and then they go through and they're trying to find this lost city, to find these arms of gold, and things go on. So they're going to be going to Buenos Aires as we go. So Indy leaves Marcus in charge. It doesn't matter who's running the class, because they're both gone.
Exactly.
So Marcus is in charge. And as we get into issue number 2, at the end of issue, what I like about these is that at the end of each issue, we do have that cliffhanger aspect that goes on, because they get on this boat, they get on this ocean liner, and this fight breaks out. These heavies come in, and somebody's after this.
Indy moment.
Yeah, so somebody else is after this. They want to find the same thing. There's a throwdown. Indy goes overboard, and that's where issue 1 ends. Issue 2 picks up. Obviously Indy's finds a way out, as he always does. So there's some really cool action scenes that are going on there. Interesting. I really love issue 2, because they talk about this. We talked about the translations in the back in the letters page, how everything's translated for you. You don't have to worry about it, except this tango club that they go to. And there's the song that's played, and none of it is translated, because even in the letters page, it's like, you're on your own for this. So, okay, I was on my own. I went and did some Googling. It's
we wouldn't be the Further Adventures guys here, fans, if we didn't do research on that for you.
Yeah, it's Madre Selva, I think, is the name of the song, and it means honeysuckle. So there you go. And the song itself it's set in a Buenos Aires neighborhood. A young woman tells the unhappy story of her first love. It was written by Luis Cesar Amadori. He was also a film director and producer. He wrote the song in 1931. Carlos Gardel recorded it, and there was a film in 1938, so a year after this took place, starring, let's see if I can get this name right.
You're on your own for that one.
Libertad Lamarque, I believe it is.
I would say Libertad Lamarque.
Libertad Lamarque, okay.
Yeah.
She passed away in 2000, Spanish singer, but she's in the comic book. She's singing the song.
She is.
Let's take a little listen to it, shall we?
Tu sombra fue mi compañera de mi niñez sin esplendor. La amiga fue tu madre selva cuando temblando mi amor primero con su esperanza besa mi alma. Yo junto a vos, pura y feliz, cantaba así mi primera confesión.
So there we've got the song. I love listening to that. Indy's doing a tango. Who knew Indy could tango?
Well, now we know.
Now we know. He may not be able to fly a plane, but he could tango.
Exactly, and he was tangoing on that ship as well. He got mixed up with a couple of never do wells on that boat. But yeah, and that will come into play later. We'll find out who actually sent those toughs to try to take him out.
Yeah, and we got some other characters coming in, and we're like, we don't know the background of them just yet. So it's one of these things where, and it's kind of cool. It's on a cruise ship. We talked about that for an upcoming radio drama that we were desperately trying to get to write.
Yes,
but we always wanted to see Indiana Jones on a cruise ship.
Drama.
But we do have Indiana Jones on a cruise ship here, tangoing. Yeah, and he gets mixed up with these people, and all of a sudden, this Romanian troupe of knife throwers, they bring him in. That's a pretty cool scene. I love how that plays out. Where all these knives are coming at Indy. I love how he gets out of it because one is going like right for his heart.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny how he gets dragged out of the audience against his will, sort of. But he is also dressed. I don't know if you noticed this. He's also dressed very, very similar to his Temple of Doom tux. Right down to the red flower.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many throwbacks to Temple of Doom and Last Crusade in this, and that's what I really love about it. And it's not overwhelming. It's just those nice little touches that kind of say, like, yeah, this is the same guy. This is the same adventure. Yep. So, yeah, and he just kind of like lifts his feet up. And, it's going right there. And he catches it in his feet. That's so awesome.
Great action scene there.
I love it. I love the action scenes in this. So, yeah, and Indy's dance partner in this is Felipe's fiancée. They're trying to figure out last time they saw him. He was trying to find something. He was at the Pacific Museum. So obviously that's where Indiana Jones and Franziska head. They find this map. I mean, Felipe took this map, but Indy, using some trickery, is able to find out the impression of this map, and they know where they're going to be going.
Right. They reveal the location of the Chimutaya Arms to be near Lake Titicaca. Make your own jokes there as you will. And when they steal the new map, going to Peru. They steal the new map and they set out for Peru. And at the Buenos Aires docks, Jones and Uribe, they come under attack by a large band of warriors dressed in Incan costumes, wielding maces, spears, axes, etc. I mean, it ends on a pretty exciting note there.
Yeah, it's, spears getting tossed at Indiana Jones. I mean, more do you want to get? Another cliffhanger? And where do these guys come from? And why does everybody want this thing? So, they're going through. Issue 3 picks up with it right again. Again, we talk about the Quechua language. Does he know it? I'm not sure. But they get out of this. Indy gets wet again. They go in the drink. They're able to escape. This one, they crawl ashore. They're heading to Peru. And here we meet up with a pilot.
I like this guy.
I did too, but you can't like him for long.
That's the problem. He's in the book for about 2 pages.
Yeah, Antoine the pilot.
Antoine the pilot.
He's a cool character. Great. He's a very cool character. He reminds me of like a French jock.
Yes, exactly. Which is what I think they were going for. And it looks like there's a little bit of history there between Antoine and Franziska. He calls her Mon Chéri, and Indy's like Mon Chéri. Like, it's a great moment there. Like he's
definitely jealous.
He's this dashing French pilot with the scarf is like waving in the wind and is flapping in the wind, and then they get up in the air. And it's funny because Antoine, once they're in the plane, he starts asking Indy about whether he was in the Great War or not. Indy, of course, answers yes, and they have a nice long conversation about it. And they mention Verdun, and it looks like they were both at Verdun, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and there's some good play between the two of them. I think at one point I think. Does he loosen the latch on the door when they're landing, and Indy kind of flies out, earlier on? There's definitely like a romantic rivals. Well, it's almost like that Belloc and Indy, rivals for Marion's attention too. It kind of reminds me of that. So again, a Raiders callback too, of sorts. So they're flying in. The plane goes down. They experience some trouble in the storm. Indy and Francisca bail out. Unfortunately for Antoine, he does not make it out.
He doesn't make it out.
I was kind of hoping he did. Yeah, he's a good character.
Yeah, he was a good character, and then you find out later that they buried him next to the plane. Yeah. Indy buried him next to the plane, and she definitely thinks that Indy's a romantic like him. It's quite sad that he's gone, but you definitely figure out why Antoine asks Indy about whether he was in the Great War or not, because he says he detects Indy's French has a Belgian accent, and that's a callback, of course, to the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, where Indy joined the Belgian Army. And
Dark Horse did a lot with the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. We talked about that series that they had. So all that information was there. And they want to tie it all
together, which I kind of get. I mean, I get that they want to kind of make it all seem to be one seamless story, which they should. I'm glad they went the I'm glad they went the extra mile to kind of to tie all those things together.
Exactly. And so the next morning, they're captured by more soldiers of the Sun. They're taken, and we find out
they're not the same soldiers. They're not the same.
No, they're different. But they're still being kidnapped. They're still being taken, and we find out that the guy behind all this is Felipe all along.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like the head of this tribe that they're going in, and so Francisca, she's startled to see all this that's going on. We find out, really what Felipe's been up to this whole time,
and what Francisca's been up to the whole time. Once they're planning to. They were planning to fake the Chimataya arms to trap Indiana Jones there. Felipe discovered a map to the real arms. Yeah. Jones revealed he knew that Francisca was behind the attacks the whole time on board the ocean liner, the knife thrower. But neither Francisca nor Felipe knew that the Inca warriors at the Buenos Aires docks, which we were talking about before, they said that these warriors were different. So who can those other warriors have been?
Yeah, and this whole plan all along, this was like an ancillary plan that Felipe kind of stumbled into, because his original plan was to get revenge on Indiana Jones, because back in 1922 Indy stole credit for something that his father had found at a dig.
Did he?
Yeah, it's kind of like Indy's like, well, your father's mistaken, or he lied or something, and he kind of doesn't say exactly what happened. Doesn't say. You're kind of left what did happen. And it was interesting. I went back and looked at the only reference I can find is Indiana Jones, The Ultimate Guide. They do make a reference in the timeline that it was actually Belloc that stole the credit, and so Indy was on the same dig, and so he kind of got the blame for it. I can't verify that anywhere else, though. So that might just be something they put in the timeline.
Yeah.
But I kind of like that.
I like that too. Again, just to kind of connect everything together. Yeah. Why not? Why wouldn't it be Belloc? We know Belloc has kind of interfered in a lot of Indiana Jones's digs and business many times before. So why wouldn't you connect it that way? I think it was pretty cool that they did it. But exactly. I mean, we don't know whether it's official or not, but it is in the Ultimate Guide. Hey, it's the Ultimate Guide. So.
It is the Ultimate Guide. There are a couple of things in there.
Its word should be law. Its word should be law in the Indiana Jones world.
There's a couple of pages in there I'm not so sure about. But
yeah, I know.
But
which we've called out too, by the way. Especially a few mistakes in the Temple of Doom entries, as we know.
Yeah. So regardless, Felipe doesn't care. He ain't buying anything. He still thinks it's Indiana Jones that did that. It's kind of like an interesting death trap. I mean, we've seen Indiana Jones buried in the jungle before, with critters coming after him up to his neck, But this one's kind of cool because he gets buried in the snow. Yes. He's kind of like stripped down, buried in the snow, and there's our last cliffhanger that we go through. I think he gets out of it kind of easily. In the fourth one, it's really quick. He just kind of like wriggles his way out, and they left his clothes there for him, which was nice of them to do.
Pretty lucky, right? I mean, they also gave him this coca drink, which will supposedly numb his pain. Which I don't know why they would want to numb his pain.
Yeah, really.
Why even do that? So he basically is not feeling how cold he is anyway. But so that kind of was a little bit. It was a little unnecessary for me as well.
So he puts his clothes back on. He runs down. He's trying to stay warm, and he gets this like vision, of this old man who kind of like guides him to a friendly llama. Which that was kind of out of nowhere. Did you get like a Han Solo Tauntaun vibe going there?
A little bit. I got a little bit of more of a Luke Obi-Wan vibe there on
of
Hawk.
the vision, yeah. And then it's kind of like a combination because he talks about how much the animal smells, and he's trying to keep warm by snuggling next to it.
I thought they smell bad on the outside.
And then he says, "Oh, I guess I smell bad on the outside."
Yeah,
it's an interesting thing. It's a llama. It's
little moments, a couple of great little moments there for sure.
So anyway, he gets back, and it's one of these things. We talked about this off mic too, and I always say, a story is only as good as its villain, and yes. I think Felipe, he's okay, but I don't know that he's a great villain. We kind of get into this zone too, where we get into this hidden city, and it's this temple, and it has like a very Last Crusade. Now we've talked about we like the Last Crusade callbacks. This one's almost dead on, and it's almost like we've seen this before, where this whole thing, and he puts the arms on, and he's trying to manipulate the stone, and he causes an earthquake. And
he steps on. He also steps on like on a stone floor, or like on a tile, and that kind of
as
goes down.
Making his way there. Yeah, right.
Yes, it's you're right. It's a big mix. I guess of the opening of Raiders and the finale of Last Crusade. I mean, there's just traps everywhere. I mean, but we like to see Indiana Jones, make his way through certain traps and survive them and stuff. But this one is a little bit too close for comfort.
Even Reed Whitby. I mean, we saw him on the cruise ship, and then it turns out he's not who he claims to be, and he's the one sending that other group, against Indiana Jones to fight him. So, and then he's dispatched pretty quickly, with a spirit of the gut. By the way, last miniseries we talked about the violence levels, like were crazy violent levels. This was the only one I really saw that was like kind of overt. So they've really toned it down. I wonder if they got some complaints about that.
They've toned it down, yeah. I mean, but there are still people getting shot and stabbed and stuff. I mean, but they're definitely toning down the blood and the graph. I mean, the spear going through Reed Whitby that's one of the more violent.
Nothing else stood out in my mind other than that one. Exactly. So I mean, it's pretty family friendly, so very reminiscent of Last Crusade in here. Like, don't trust anybody, and it's just like, okay, you said you were this, but you turn out to be this. We kind of see these things. All kinds of crazy Indiana Jones stuff happens. The temple collapses. Felipe is crushed. He saves his sister on the way out. There, I don't know. I really like this adventure. As do I. Yeah, I just thought I've seen this ending before. Yes. I mean, even when you think about Crystal Skull, they get into a temple. It's a hidden city. Stuff happens. It collapses. Yes. I think we've kind of seen this before. I'm really hoping Indiana Jones 5 doesn't do that. I know everybody's like, oh, Spielberg's like, we got the MacGuffin. We solved the MacGuffin. Yeah. Okay, to me, when you and I have talked about this before, I don't know that it's always necessarily about the MacGuffin. I like how the MacGuffin propels the action. But you think about Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's not always about the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, we got truck chase.
Exactly. It's something that propels the story forward. It moves the story forward. I mean, and that's what Hitchcock. What Hitchcock has always done. He had something, and that just propelled the story forward. And that's exactly what should be done in these movies. And for the most part, the first 3 movies, that's exactly what happened. Yeah. Crystal Skull, it was slightly different. We won't go into that, but that's, I mean. This ending is very. I mean, it's almost beat for beat the ending to Crystal Skull, even down to where the water kind of comes over.
Right.
And they're like, it's gone. It's all gone. It's really like, oh my God. I wonder if they really went in and they kind of took some of these ideas.
But this started in Last Crusade with the, we're going to take this out, and then the thing crumbles, and then the earth shakes, and we got to get out of here, and wouldn't you rather have seen like Indy take the arms himself and put it on and like maybe blast his way out, and it's like
just gonna say that.
Or take Felipe out with them or something, and then he gets the arms and he takes them back into the museum.
Not even that Indy had to use them. What if Felipe put them on and used them? And
I mean, he kind of does. I mean, Felipe puts them on to use them, but not against Indy.
But not against Indy, exactly.
Wouldn't he yeah, I agree, like a supervillain would or something, you know?
Right. And then finally using them to escape, but then they're lost again, you know.
Yeah, it's all this accidental thing. I still think Indy should have gotten the arm. Like, he, have them on, and then, maybe they can help him swim. So, he does some super golden swimming or something like that, And then he gets him back, and then they end up in the warehouse. And, it just, something a little bit different, or maybe heroic. And the more you and I talk, I really start to appreciate Temple of Doom each time I see it, because it's Indy in action, not Indy INACTI, not in action, but in action. Yes. He throws down with Mola Ram, and it's like Indy takes him out. Indy takes him out, and he's fighting him. And I love...
And it's something different. Yeah. It's something different. And say what you will. I mean, I know, Last Crusade is a great movie, but there's a lot of beat for beat.
He bugs out. Same thing with Crystal Skull. He bugs out.
Exactly. I mean... Temple of Doom is where he really, like you said, he was in action the whole time.
And in Raiders, he is action hero the whole time, but just at the very end, he's tied to the post, and he doesn't do anything. Yeah, so I really think, I'm hoping in Indiana Jones 5, they'll deviate from that and just make him, propel everything. I want to see him, you think about James Bond or Jason Bourne or, these action heroes. They're throwing down. They're making things happen. I think Indiana Jones should do that as well, and not necessarily these things like, hey, here's this main thing we've been going after, and here this crazy supernatural stuff happens, and Indy has to run away from it. I think I'm kind of done with that.
Yeah,
we've seen it a lot. And so I think this was a letdown of an ending, but I think the adventure has been fun the whole way through. I really, really enjoyed Arms of Gold completely.
As did I. And we got a great little epilogue, too, where a week later after the events, you have Uribe and Jones dining in Lima, Peru. And, she promised to return Jones that map impression, which he only back a couple issues ago, he pretended to eat it.
Yeah.
which is also, we forgot to mention that, but that's kind of a pretty funny moment. Yeah. He pretends to eat that map back in Buenos Aires
because they're trying to take it off him. He's like, yeah,
exactly.
Didn't get much to eat on the boat.
And then you get a waiter coming out that reminds Jones of that glowing old man that he saw in that vision.
Obi-Wan.
Maybe it was from the right, exactly. And Uribe told Jones of Viracocha, I think it's called. I think that's the way it's pronounced.
Yep.
Now, with Uribe's family vengeance, the issues settled. The spark of romance can possibly begin between the two archaeologists. But as we know, when Last Crusade rolls around, she's nowhere to be found.
No, and I thought first of all, she got over her brother's death very quickly. And second of all, she was behind all the attacks on Indy trying to kill him, and now it's like, okay.
Yeah. So again, like she mentions to Jones that the waiter or the guy that Indy had seen was he resembled the god Viracocha, who walks the earth as a guide. So maybe Indy was guided by this god
to the friendly llama.
To the friendly llama, but who knows? And
it wasn't the Dalai Lama; it was the friendly llama.
It wasn't exactly. And then Indy shows how he pulled off that trick of not actually eating that map, which is again another great little moment there.
Amateur magician, just added to his skill set, added to the resume. Overall, I like this adventure. I think it's a marked improvement over the last one.
I agree. I mean, the reason why I like the MacGuffin. I thought the MacGuffin was interesting. I like the characters. I love Francisca. Great locations and it's a 4-issue miniseries. It moves. The pacing is much better. The pacing is great. I mean, 4 issues. I think it's perfect for an Indiana Jones adventure. And also, I mean, it's kind of like they're giving us the things that we like about Indy without it being really too similar. I mean, don't forget this was before Crystal Skull, so that ending that we got. We hadn't seen something like that before with the water coming through and wiping everything away. So I mean, after the fact, I still enjoyed reading this adventure. I had a lot of fun with it, and I was really hoping to see some of these characters again. Maybe we will. So there you have it, Arms of Gold. Keith and I both like it. Go get it. Check it out. Get the book so you get the letters column, get a little bit more information. Yeah. Hey, you want to check out the mailbag?
Mister, get your arm out of that mailbox. I mean now.
Oh, dear me.
I haven't had so much trouble delivering a package since the incident in Vienna.
And we heard from Todd Christians. Todd writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Been listening for a few years now. I recently started rereading all of the Further Adventures comics, and I'd like to listen to your issue-by-issue reviews as I go along. Problem is, I can't seem to find a way, without doing a ton of manual searching through each IndyCast episode, which episodes/podcasts have your comic reviews on them. Do you have an episode guide somewhere that notates which comic book is reviewed on which episode of the IndyCast? Thanks." Hey, thanks for writing in, Todd. Absolutely, we do. If you check the Facebook page and go to the About section, there's a whole, I think it's what's it called? A long description, I think it is, and you click on that and it reveals everything.
Yes,
we've got everything
About
in there.
Us, I think. Yeah, it's all there.
Yeah, not only the episode that we did. I mean, this is episode 65 that we're doing, but on which IndyCast it is, and it says which comics we're reviewing, which person we interviewed. So that's all out there. So first of all, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for going back. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it. Absolutely.
Yeah, you got 5 years worth of podcasts to go through. So
it'll take you considerably less time to listen to it all than it is to
record
than it was to make it all. So, yes, enjoy it.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
Well, like Indy says, that's all the time we have for today. And yeah, Joe, that's Indiana Jones in the Arms of Gold. What'd you think?
I liked it. Liked it overall. It's a definite improvement. I really love the adventure. Just an ending we've seen before. And we'll see again.
Well, let's hope we don't see it again cinematically. Also, same here. Liked it. Can highly recommend it. I mean, pick up the issues like we mentioned before. That is 5 years of the Further Adventures, guys.
Happy anniversary, my friend. I enjoyed every second of it.
As have I. Looking forward to many, many more years now that we're getting Indy 5. Let's hope we're getting more comics. We're getting even more movies. Let's hope we're getting an animated series. Let's hope we're getting more novels. And there's going to be tons more stuff to cover here on the Further Adventures and on the IndyCast.
Absolutely. Hey, we want to hear from people, too. Don't forget the Facebook page. It's at the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. And email us, thefurtheradventures@gmail.com. We want to hear from you guys.
And you know what? We are going to be hearing more, I think, from them, Joe, because, Indy time is coming, and everybody's going to start getting back into that Indy mode again, and they're going to start getting excited, and we have people rediscovering this podcast and picking up old issues of Indiana Jones comic books, and they're going to get motivated to go watch this new Indiana Jones movie. And you know what, Joe? Next up, we're going to have more Indy and even more gold, except it's not a golden arm. It's going to be a golden ram. Our review of the 2-issue Dark Horse comic series, Indiana Jones and the Golden Fleece, is going to be next time on the Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.